Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome back to What's the 411, your channel for all things cannabis news. I am your host this evening, Kit Grimes, representing the wonderful organization M for MM, Minorities for Medical Marijuana. If you are not following along with our organization and don't know what we do exactly, make sure that you follow us. Go to the website www.m4mmunited.org. So this evening, we've got some juicy topics. I think that they're really good because they span across everything from culture to science and everything in between with cannabis. And more importantly, I have one of my favorite M for M org leaders here with me this evening, and he is actually my co-host this evening. I'm so excited. And I, without further ado, want to introduce you all to the Canamedic Program Director in M for MM, Mr. Stanley Atkins Ledoux. How are you, honey?
Hey, I'm good, Kit. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me on What's the 411? Again, as you stated, my name's Stanley Atkins II. A lot of you know me as the Canamedic, but I am also the National Director of Hemp Farming and Technology with Minorities for Medical Marijuana. Thanks for having me on, Kit.
No, I'm excited because well, for one, people don't know. Like when we get together, it gets a little spicy, like in like all the good ways. You know what I'm saying? So we always bring out the great energies, and so we're super excited to be able to bring you a couple of things today. So without further ado, let's crack into these topics again. Before we get into the topics, just make sure shout out again to Minorities for Medical Marijuana, who are the awesome sponsors for this show today. We're doing this because of them, and we're super excited to be here. Also, make sure that you are following me at The Edible Incredible, as well as She Stays Baked. So apparently I got a little baked before this show, so we'll see how this all goes. So without further ado, let's crack into these topics and make sure that you guys are sharing this. If you're watching this, share this along on your page. It's going to be some good info, and we love sharing it. So first topic that's up is cop fired for cannabis gets reinstated. And I think that that's so super big because let's talk about it. For one, how often is this even thought to happen where a cop that loses his job gets reinstated for having a cannabis charge? So it is super awesome. Let me see, where is my awesome information? So apologies, my link is acting super crazy. Let's see. Hold on, guys. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden my link just went super crazy and it went away. Okay, so we're gonna come back to this story, and this is the first time that this has ever happened on the show because normally my topics are absolutely upfront. So why that one just disappeared, I don't know. But just in general, just to talk about it, the fact that a cop is reinstated for getting fired from cannabis is super big because they're so particular about any law enforcement even touching it. I know cops in New York that they walk, they see people actually partaking, and of course it's legal there now, but they could never do it. They would absolutely get fired. As a matter of fact, I want to say there was a chief of police there that said it's legal, just not for y'all, and that was saying it to their officers. So the fact that someone actually did get their career back when they actually lost their job in the first place, to me, is super big. Like, what are your thoughts on that, Stanley?
The issue with cannabis in occupation, unfortunately, is cannabis is still federally illegal, everybody. So no matter how many states go legal, adult use, whatever type program you're going to have, there's still a lot of jobs where you cannot consume cannabis. Um, I personally have met people that had similar things happen. One person was a firefighter, and his story had a special place to me because I spent almost a decade as a firefighter paramedic. And when he found out that medical cannabis could potentially help him while he was out on medical leave, he started using medical cannabis. He consulted with his doctors and started to show signs of improvement. But he faced a lot of backlash from work. So the fact that the officer has been reinstated, I think that's a step in the right direction. But in order to really take the whole cannabis and occupation conversation further, that conversation is going to have to be had by unions, because a lot of times the unions that represent different entities or industries, they can create say-so or create language. But again, it is fairly illegal, and there's a lot of people who I personally know. Think about yourself. Think about some of the followers we have with M for MM. There are people who follow me that will never tell you. They will never click like. They will never post. They will never share. Those are the people that will send a DM to be like, hey, I follow your page. I took my mother to the event that y'all put on and found some great resources. And I'm thankful, but I can't click like, I can't comment because of my occupation.
That happens more than we actually or what actually talk about. I won't say that we actually know, because I feel like we actually know that, because I get that a lot. People who are getting ready to no longer be in law enforcement, people who, again, they want to support, they want to do everything, but they can't have their name intermixed because of their careers, even though a lot of these people partake in order to do better quality of work in their careers. So what are the odds that I can't talk about this wonderful thing that actually helps me be wonderful in what you all want me to be able to do, but it's still within these legal ramifications where y'all say yay, then there's a nay, and then now we're in between. So it is definitely kind of wild.
Well, at the end of the day, the way I look at it is, if I'm an employer and I have a warehouse where we move packages and I have 65 employees, and one of those employees who's operating a forklift injures himself or someone or damages some equipment, and they want to file workers' comp. Well, the first thing, everybody's ever been injured on the job. I've been injured on the job. The first thing you're going to do is go take a drug test. And so if that person, even if it's legal in their state, they could potentially lose that case or lose their job, because just because it's legal, you can't go to jail for it. That doesn't mean you can use it and work here. It's a lot kind of like don't ask, don't tell. But we need to really start looking into this, have more conversations about it. I do remember, right before the pandemic, a district outside around DC, that area, where a bunch of major corporations got together and put out a letter that said they would no longer screen for THC during the hiring process. So, that's a start there.
There's a couple of states that's starting to do that. I think New York is actually one of them as well, where certain positions or careers aren't going to actually be testing for THC or cannabis anymore as a part of the hiring process. So definitely, we've got some strides and moves, as always, in the industry that we're taking. So I really thought that was kind of wild, crazy, that, because how often do you hear about that happening? I'm still pulling up my other information on it, because I really want to give people like real details as far as like where it was located. I feel like it was maybe in Oakland. I have to check again, but just to have that even happen, I would have never thought, right? Because I feel like once you have that stain and stigma on you, I almost feel like, and this is just me kind of thinking out loud, even if they reinstated me in that position, would I want to go back? And mainly, and more so, because I feel like the level of scrutiny that would be had behind that person, right? Because you're coming back from cannabis charges. So now are we saying that you no longer use cannabis and now we get to check you and make sure of that? Or are we saying that, know, it's now, you see what I'm saying? It's just a
Yeah.
very slippery slope. And I would wonder if, especially being known as the cop that came back from the green stuff, how am I being looked at? Am I being still looked at with a level of value and and gratitude for doing my job? You know what I'm saying? Am I being looked at in a way that I'm being honored in my role? Because cops, they put, I mean, regardless of where you stand or how you feel about cops personally, they
Mhm.
still put their lives on the line every day, and you never know what they're going to run into. Again, I have a couple of friends that I know that are cops, and when I hear the stories about, like, I'm like, as a matter of fact, I was talking to my friend. I was like, "Oh, how was your shift?" He was like, "Oh, it was cool. It was a chase down and shooting already." Shooting,
Mhm.
like what? And I was like, "Wait, you were shooting at people?" He was like, "Oh no, somebody got shot. We had to go and get them." I'm like, "You just never know." You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a mixed bag. So, am I being, if this was me as the cop coming back, am I being looked at as still
The
a
stone.
valued and valuable officer who is capable of, doing my job, not only, to the best of my abilities, but being seen as someone who is reliable, in the call of duty.
I think you used the word value or devalue just a moment ago. That's a good point because even if you're a declarated officer, you're on the SWAT team, you're on the public outreach team, something like this happens, there is like a little stigma behind you. If you accidentally get into an accident, you get into an accident at work, or you get hurt at work, or a perpetrator gets away, your coworkers are always going to be like, well, maybe if he wasn't so high, he would have caught him, or maybe if you weren't smoking, you would have saw the gun on the ground, or you would have found something. So yeah, it comes with the destigmatization of cannabis. I think that's where we are. That's the end of the day. Whether it's a personal, professional, medical, we have to destigmatize cannabis. So without the stigma around cannabis, nobody would have cared because we never complain if an officer is drunk unless they're operating a vehicle. So one of the things that I think that as an industry we have to continue to do tastefully is make cannabis as socially acceptable as a glass of wine.
Because let's talk about, look, I have an affinity for a good old glass of red wine, okay? And you hear of many moms that, and when they're unwinding after a long day of work, they pour themselves a glass of wine while they're cooking dinner. And it's not seen as any issue if they have one or two. And think about it, they might have one or two glasses a night, right? That's like 5 to 10 glasses of wine a week. And somehow that's still not seen as an issue. You know, she doesn't have a drinking problem, right? She's just unwinding after a long day with a glass of wine. But
Yeah.
now let's say I replaced a glass of wine with, let's say, one of our rolled up, green friends. Now all of a sudden, oh, what kind of parent comes home and
She's a
is working?
druggie.
Is she, all of a sudden, it's all of these other stigmas that don't even give the level of what, it's unwinding. It's just a different method of doing it. And some might argue even a healthier method as far as like what it has as far as the effects on the body. Red wine can be, it has its health properties, shout out to the red. But at the same time, so it's just a very interesting thing. I wonder what the slippery slope of that would look like.
Well,
But
I,
hmm?
I know that, as you said, making it more acceptable, more socially acceptable, that kind of leads us into the next article you and I were discussing earlier, that Colorado law allowing online marijuana sales officially takes effect. So, looking at this and wondering what potential impact does this have on the industry? So I know that you're in a state where we don't have dispensaries for an adult use program. I'm also in a state that doesn't have an adult use program with multiple dispensaries. What are your thoughts on people being able to actually order online the same way you can get your wine delivered, you can get your tacos delivered, your toiletries. What do you think this is going to do to the industry, and what type of impact do you think this is going to have on the culture in Colorado?
Well, before I give my synopsis, I just want to give a quick blurb and let people know what happened. So, Colorado online marijuana sales are officially allowed as of Monday, giving consumers a new method of ordering cannabis more than a decade after the state enacted legalization. This comes 2 months after Governor Jared Polis signed the online sales legislation from Representatives Linstead, Charbini, and Rodriguez into law. The measure strikes language from the state statute that explicitly prohibited cannabis from being sold on the internet while adding regulations to provide for online commerce. Adults 21 and older will still need to physically pick up the marijuana products from a retailer, but they can browse and electronically purchase cannabis online ahead of visiting the store. So, for one, I think that that is beyond amazing, right? Because they basically have just made it e-commerce no different than if you were going to pick up a Walmart order or going to pick up a Target order, right? It's like, oh, let me see what they have in their inventory. Browse, 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 grab a sale or two. Hey, I'm here to pick up for Kit. Oh, okay, we already have you. Can I see your ID? Oh, great. Scan, boop, boop. Here you go. And then you're in and out of the door. I think that that's super cool for people who are still a little more private. I feel like older clientele, this is amazing for, because, little old grandma may not necessarily want to go in there, but she can have her grandson or, someone help her do it at home. And then all they have to do is go and pick it up for her. I always think it's super cute when I see like the little old ladies at the counter and they're getting all their stuff. And I'm like, okay, grandma, I see how you coming to get your goodies. So I personally think that that is super awesome. It definitely shows, the evolution of how cannabis not only grow within markets, but in its own market itself within the industry, how we've gone from your mom and pop kind of sales to now being able to have e-commerce, kind of a setup that makes it, beyond, what I mean, if someone would have told me 5 years ago, even 5 years ago, let's go there, that I would actually be able to go online and scroll a menu and actually order it and pay for it and just pick it up, I would just be like, maybe in Cali, maybe in Oregon, maybe in Colorado. Well, look, here in Colorado, right? But I would never think about that, like if they would have told me that back then, that would actually be a thing.
So the first time I ever ordered delivery, we were just trying it out. I want to say we were on like Weed Maps or one of the apps, like 2016. I want to say we're in Southern Cali, and it was late. A lot of dispensaries closed by 8 o'clock. Some even earlier in a lot of places. They aren't like Vegas. We can go at 3 a.m. And we found a little app, little people to order from. We put the order in, and it was like an Uber. They actually showed up. We were all kind of skeptical, and we were like, "Wow, like you just pulled up." And he's like, "Yeah, man, we deliver until midnight." I think it's great. You alluded to a really good point when you said for people who don't want their business publicized, they like to be in and out, especially if they can do curbside pickup with ID verification. The number one thing that I'm going to have to read a little bit more into this, and we'll touch back on it a little bit later. What type of ID verification system are they using? Because we do want to make sure that the people that are getting it are the ones that are ordering it, and that they are legal to obtain those products. But I think this is another step in the right direction. I mean, if you think of anything in your house that you want to order right now, pretty much you can have it delivered either through Amazon, Uber Eats, DoorDash. I think that's going to increase ease of access. Because you remember we were in Vegas, we went to Hardeen's. Mm-hmm. The first night I went to Hardeen's, a special someone wanted to treat me, and they found out Hardeen's had a website, and they went and booked the whole shopping cart. She was thinking that she could just swipe her card online, and I just go in and pick it up. What it does is it pretty much holds it for you. So when you get it there, you still have to do a checkout. I was thinking like, wow, somebody, order me a few packs of gummies and this, and I just go pick it up. But it's good though. It's the tip of the iceberg for what this industry is headed. This industry is becoming more automated. We are seeing more kiosks, like little iPads in dispensaries, and those kiosks and those iPads are replacing bud tenders in a lot of places. So for people who want to just be in and out, I personally have met patients that are elderly, a little bit over 60 years old, who went to a dispensary and they got intimidated because it was so many products, it was so many people. Cookies was dropping a couple of new strains. So you got these young people in there. They're just in there trying to get them some mid and some topical salve. And all those people in there, like, I didn't even get anything because it was just too much for me. I wish they had a way I could just order out of a vending machine. So I think that's going to be good for the industry. Hopefully more states will get on board with it. I am a big supporter of that.
I know one thing, and this is going to change the game in a lot of ways, but it also makes me interested to see how we continue, to grow. And because of just even the benefits that it's going to have, for people, medical patients who may not be able to get out, who may have to do everything online and might have to have someone pick it up or whatever the case may be. It even offers that to them. And just speaking of, quality of what the plant can do, let's talk about how medical marijuana improves military veterans' quality of life and reduces prescription drug use, studies find. So, I mean, we're always talking about this. We have a huge impact and military program that we do. Shout out to our director who he has moved on to bigger things, but he is still very much connected with the organization, Leo Bridgewater, who was over our veterans program, and we love him for life and forever. Over 90% of U.S. military veterans who use medical marijuana says that it improves their quality of life, with many using cannabis as an alternative to the over-the-counter and prescription medications, according to a new study. Researchers at the University of Massachusetts, University of Utah, and Cannabis Research Institute looked at self-reported survey data from 510 veterans who said that they consume marijuana, seeking to better understand the purpose and experience of their. The majority of the respondents said that they actually use cannabis daily. About a third said they use it to reduce other medications, including antidepressants, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, and another 21% says it has allowed them to reduce their use of opioid-based medications. Overall, 91% of the veterans said that cannabis improved their quality of life. Now, let's talk about it. Let us talk about it, because we're talking about people, and thank you guys for your service. You all do a very, thankless act, and we don't thank you guys enough. So thank you guys for everything. And we know that vets go through PTSD. They go through, this is like your lane. You feel what I'm saying? I'm just a very small, rider on it. So you tell us, from understanding it from that perspective, what are your thoughts on, how they feel about what it's been able to do for them? I'm really big about the opioid, disruption. So I'm gonna let you go.
And I think that opioids, mental health, injuries, Medicaid, they all tie in together. What we need to understand, and I don't want to get too medically technical, people who deal with chronic illnesses, diseases, or injuries, for oftentimes there's not a one thing that's going to fix everything. It's not like putting a Band-Aid on a scratch. They may need different medications for different signs and symptoms. So when it comes to us veterans, we were just looking for ways to incorporate cannabis as a potential alternative. We do know that a lot of veterans can't stop just taking their medication, special mental health, but it's what we call a polypharmacy approach, which means, taking your medication that you're given and combining some of them with cannabis, making sure that they're safe to do. I'm a disabled veteran. I suffer from chronic pain. I suffer from PTSD, but I don't let that stop me. I don't let that stop my work. If you've ever been around me, I was in pain. If anybody ever sees me, I hurt anytime I'm awake. It always hurts. But cannabis takes the edge off the pain. Because a lot of people hear me like, oh, well, he just smokes a joint and everything's all right. No. But cannabis makes that chronic pain in our knees, our elbows, our back, our neck, it makes the pain manageable. So if it takes it to where you don't have to take an Oxycontin or a Percocet or a hydrocodone, you don't have the ibuprofen or some of the other NSAIDs, as you stated, that is prolonging the life of that veteran's kidney, prolonging their liver, their body. A lot of these medications they put us on have adverse side effects. So if we can actually lower the amount of medications that they're taking, who wouldn't want that? The reason it's been such a big fight for us with the VA is because it's the government. A lot of people don't know how the VA actually works. They get federal funding. So in order to receive federal funding, you can't have anything that's Schedule 1. But there's been a great push. There are some great organizations out there. I would like to send a big shout out to my friend and colleague and research partner, Dr. Marion McNabb. If anyone's interested on the research for veterans, we actually did a veterans medical cannabis research study in 2019. We have lots of data. We have everything from what they're using it for, how they're using it, all the way to the barriers of usage. And what I mean by that is, for ones who want to use it, who need to use it, what is the hurdle that's keeping them from accessing it? And most of them just can't afford it. A lot of disabled veterans are on fixed incomes. They aren't employable. So this is really good. If you want to support this industry, please support organizations that help veterans, even if that support is as small as clicking like or sharing a post or just telling somebody about it, because medical cannabis truly improved my quality of life. It changed my life forever. When I initially started consuming, I was a full-time firefighter paramedic. I cannot do that there. So the whole time, and I'm a veteran, and I was trying to get into the VA. So I was always thinking, we can't talk about this. I can't use it. But a secret that some people know and some people don't. I was, after serving 2 deployments and serving in the Persian Gulf twice, I was discharged from the United States military for quote unquote drug abuse for consuming cannabis. And when I went to captain's match, they asked me, we about to go to war, why are you smoking weed? And I told them because it's safer for me than drinking. I saw how the influence of military alcohol consumption, that role played in my life. We have a lot of our loved ones that are going out to the military and becoming functional alcoholics. They don't know it because consuming copious amounts of alcohol in the military is the coping mechanism. Have a couple beers, that is how you process that trauma. You never get over it. And so if cannabis could
I know a lot of military guys and girls,
yeah,
and they can definitely,
I'm sure
they can definitely fit you under the table.
You've heard the term "drink like a sailor."
Exactly. Well, and they mean it, okay? Because them squids be squidding, okay? They not just called squids for no reason. But no, it definitely, I feel like, for one, we live in a society where a medication leads to a medication. It never really leads to the curative, right? And I always tell people, always aim for the preventative as much as possible. If you can prevent something before you have to start going into all of the different opioids and medications that they have out here for you, you actually are ahead of the curve, But for those who do have to do them, it's when you have something else that you can see that actually can help and benefit you. And then we still, have people on all of these different medical cocktails, which it's the cycle, right? Because one of these medications, requires you, because of whatever side effect, that you need to take this other medication. But then you take this other medication and it damages your kidneys. So now you have to take a diuretic. And now this diuretic is doing it. And you wind up being on this cocktail to just kind of keep this circle going. But as you're going like this in this circle, the quality of your life is diminishing as well, just because of what the medications can be doing to your body. So the fact that, we're getting this data, we're able to look and see, like, no, we see the benefits now. No one can really say at this point that they haven't seen the benefits, which is why doctors will actually prescribe it to patients. I mean, have you heard of doctors prescribing alcohol to patients? I mean,
That's 200 years. Maybe in the cowboy days, some whiskey and a little bit of turkey.
But whiskey was normally used to, like, look, we got to clean this wound right quick before we stitch you up. Take this shot because you might pass out after this needle, comes searing through your skin. You know what I'm saying? It was a different time where, meds may or may not have been available, but now we have better things to do and use and can kind of grow in that space. So speaking of growth, like, just to kind of cut into our next topic, Maryland marijuana sales reach a record high of 87 million in the first month of adult use legalization. That in itself is, in the first month, there are generations of people who'll never see $87 million. And they saw it in the first month of adult use legalization. Maryland legal marijuana sales reached a record high of $87.4 million in July, the first month since the recreational market launched, state data shows. That more than doubles the sales totals for June, when medical cannabis dispensaries were only serving patients. About 100 of those existing dispensaries were cleared to service adult consumers starting July 1st. The previous record for medical only purchases was just over 50 million. What in the frog's hair? Oh my goodness. That is,
the math is mathing.
That is, like, I don't know. I just feel like that is insane. And I think when I really think about it, so if this is what is done in a legal market, what are the numbers beforehand? Like, before it was even illegal, I can only imagine what the legacy market numbers look like, and why now I can see where the push and pull comes, because I can only imagine how much of that is taxes.
Yeah, a lot of that's going to go to taxes.
Not even going to taxes, not even the sales, not even the amount that will go to taxes to pay for it. I'm just talking about what the sales tax was. Because that number in itself, I'm sure is a good chunk of where these millions are coming from. Think about when we were in Vegas.
Yeah,
the taxes. Yeah, like, I was so happy when people were like, "Oh, you get this discount." I do. Thank you. Thank you so much. Because isn't it like 30% tax in Vegas? Something crazy?
Like roughly 30% tax. I mean, the first time I went to Jungle Boys in SoCal, like 2016-17, it was before Prop. It was when they were still under Prop 215. Mm-hmm. So, it was still the medical. I went after they went adult use, was it Prop 64. I went to the same dispensary, got the same thing I always get, a certain amount of flour, a certain amount of extracts. The price was like $108 difference. So I'm having them go back over.
Wait, what?
It was $108 difference. So I was like, wait a minute.
Wait, what?
And my order was about $220, $230. Like, I'm here now, my order is $352. And she's like, yeah, this. You're going to get taxed multiple times. You've got the state tax. You've got the local tax. It's like, a lot of times when you look at the receipt, there's 3 different taxes. And I was like, geez, like, I could have got more flour. And I think that fuels a lot of the legacy market, because we all know there's still, in a lot legal states, there is illicit entities that may potentially sell product. And, I was on the same app one time I was in Cali, and that same trip, we were like, well, we're not going back to Jungle Boys, but this place is near our venue. Let's just go check it out. Brick and mortar location, went in there, no taxes. Prices are probably a third of what I paid. And I'm just scratching my head. I'm like, wait a minute. How does this work? This can't be the same quality. It was the same quality. I was like, wow. I just went in here and spent $160 for what I went over there and spent close to $400. So Maryland, you go, girl. When you said those numbers, I'm looking at it. So here are the numbers for you, kid. You ready?
Oh,
That 87 million, that is $2.9 million per day. That is $120,000, $833.33 per hour. That is $2,013.88 a minute. And we all know that dispensaries aren't open 24 hours. So most of those sales came between the hours of 8 and 8.
8. It depends. That might be between 10 and 7. Like you're right. You talking about from 8 to 8. You're talking about from like maybe 10 to maybe 7. So, Jesus, like that is just. I'm in the month. So now let's start asking some real questions.
All right.
What does that look like? Okay, so for one, Maryland is a vast state. Anyone who lives in Maryland, shout out to you guys, knows that Baltimore and Maryland, although they reside in the same place, are two different places. What does this look like for the economic stimulation going back into the city? Are we counting this money? Because Baltimore City and Baltimore County, two different places. Is this something where I would like to see that? I guess that's the better way to say it. I'm looking to see what all of these numbers mean after taxes. Because everyone's, the people, again, I know a couple of those millions is the taxes that were paid for the sales of cannabis itself. And I just see it was 7.83 million spent on taxes. So now you take that out, right? So that still leaves it at what?
77,
80.1.
Yeah.
I still want to know, and that's for the month. So now, outside of the cultivators, everyone getting paid or whatever, what programs are being used to actually help stimulate the economy that has suffered, especially in, certain inner cities in Maryland. Maryland is a beautiful state, do not get me wrong, but there are a lot of places where, the money would be better used. And we know how that thing goes, right? The haves have and the have not still try to struggle. I'm just wondering if there's going to be any kind of like programming that goes to help stimulate the economy. What does this look like for jobs? Are they actually, with sales like that, you would think, you're going to need, more, employees, you're going to need, more cultivators, more tenders. Like how does that look for that? What are your thoughts on that? That's just my spitball right there.
I don't have a strong working knowledge of the actual bill because a lot of times when those laws are signed in before they go to the governor's desk, they have set asides for X amount will go to, drug courts. X amount may go to youth drug diversion programs. X amount will go to, reoffender programs. I think that they should have some in there for youth development. I don't know what they do, but I would love to see some allocation of some funds for maybe like some incubators for licensees or for those who have been unjustly affected or disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. I would like to see some of that money put into the most hardest hit communities that are affected by the war on drugs. That incubator would be great. But I've actually never been to Maryland. I do want to go up there and get me some crab cakes. Yeah, I've never been to
Maryland.
I've never been to Maryland.
What?
Yeah, I'm
oh my goodness. Dude, we'll talk about that offline. Like, but oh my gosh, like, what do you mean?
Put a trip up there to go do some connections and eat some infused crab cakes.
Look, now, because I'm over here like, what? I can't believe you've never been. So no, we definitely gonna have to make that journey. We'll talk about that offline. But I will say, I just got some information. Their sales tax on cannabis is only 9%, which is the lowest in the country. That actually is like some amazing pricing. Like again, we just said in Vegas it was like 30%, something crazy. 20, I think it was like 27%, 33% at one point. I feel like when we went to oh man, I
And
can
viewers, we're not
okay,
just
it's 21% in Nevada.
yeah, we're
So
not everything is that much higher, but they have multiple taxes that will go. So when you go to the register, the price you see up there, it is going to be higher than that. Kit has seen it firsthand. So when you go to the
absolutely.
states,
But I will say when you do like and another point was made, and I appreciate that, like, you know, when you have reasonable taxes, you know, it makes it where it helps to combat the illicit market, you know, and get people more from the illicit market into, you know, the the green or the new market, you know. So definitely, you know, I can see that where it'd be a benefit because it's not overtaxing, because no one wants to be overtaxed, you know what I'm saying, for anything. And it doesn't matter whether it's weed, cars, groceries. Look, I'd be mad right now. I'm like, why are they taxing me on gas prices right now? Okay. I'm like, come on. Like, so absolute, like I think I'm excited to see what this means for Maryland, mainly like inner city parts of Maryland. Again, shout out to Baltimore, y'all. Beirut is a different place, okay, and they need all the stimulizing that they can possibly get. Stimulation, get it, whatever the word is, get it to them, okay, get it to Baltimore. So, well, no, I wanted to and we're going to go into our last topic because I wanted to end with this one particularly because I thought that this was super big and this is big for the culture, and want to make sure that you guys see this. The NBA, and this isn't being talked about, like, guys, like, and I feel like this is something that people really would have been talking about had it been more mainstream. But the NBA officially signs contract removing marijuana from banned substances list and allowing players to invest in cannabis companies. Guys, that is super big because everyone, you know, especially for me, you know, I've cooked for, you know, a couple of celebrities. A lot of the times they have to wait until after camp and training once they get all of their testing and stuff done, because then they're tested in the beginning of the season. And unless they have a reason to be tested again, they're not. So, you know, it's all of these stipulations and things that, you know, go along with trying to actually consume and be in the cannabis industry when you're an athlete. And for this to actually be happening, I think is super big. The NBA and its players union have officially signed a collective bargaining agreement that removes marijuana from the league's banned substances list and lays out rules of, allowing players to invest in and promote cannabis brands with certain exceptions. About 2 months after the NBA and the National Basketball Players Association reached an agreement on the 7-year contract, it has now has been signed and enters into force this weekend. The 676-page document contains a number of cannabis provisions, though arguably the most impactful is the removal of marijuana from the list of prohibited substances for the players. Players will also be allowed to hold a direct or indirect ownership interest, whether controlling or non controlling, in an entity that produces or sells CBD products, which is defined as, we know, anything that has 0.3% or less of THC by dry weight. So, man, Stanley, what do you think? Talk to me. I think this is wild, crazy, super big, and there's been so much news about so many other things going on. I feel like this just kind of slid like right under the radar. Like I until I was started researching and looking at it, I didn't hear anything about it. So I'm over here like, what? Like, okay.
I think I can sum it up in one word. Bowling. It's about time. All right. We have been looking at NBA players on the sideline since we were kids, looking at their lips. And as Tina always wearing like, yeah, I know he does. Yeah, oh, he looked like it. And I have personally hung out with some NBA players. I was fortunate enough to be a medic for some NBA teams in my previous career. There was a report a few years ago from an interview that Matt Barnes did, I want to say, and he said potentially 70 to 80% of the league consumes. You've seen interviews where, former players are talking about it. And I really would like to, give some of the people their flowers who are in that arena, but have really been pushing that narrative forward. And, your Matt Barnes, your Steven Jacksons, your Paul Pierce, your Sean Kemps, your Gary Paytons. I'm sure I'm missing a few more.
Al Harrington.
Right, the crew from Viola. They have really been holding an educated conversation about it, not just going live and smoking in the club and partying. They bring it in, they bring context to the conversation, but they bring the professionalism from one being a lot of those sports mogul or someone they know have a lot of influence, but also being a person who does consume and being able to articulate why they consume. There are players that were like, hey man, after the games, my knees are hurting. My back's hurting every game. My hips are hurting.
Ice bats don't hit the same after so many years. Yeah,
And I don't see anything wrong with it. I do remember a few years ago when Kevin Durant tore his Achilles and TMZ was following him out of a restaurant in Cali. And they're like, hey, Mr. Durant, you dropped your weed. He dropped one of the little tubes. Remember at the dispensary, it used to come in the tubes. He dropped it walking out of the restaurant, and the TMZ guy picks it up and holds it up like, hey, man, you dropped this. It's like he kept put it in his pocket and got in. He didn't get any flack for that. Kevin Durant has been one of the bigger advocates who's been a public voice for consumption, for cannabis. I like to see it. I do like the fact that they aren't limiting them to only consumption, because there are players who do have a strong business team around them. I mean, there are a lot of people who would like to have some LeBron James Kush or some Paul Pierce pre-rolls, things of that nature. So out to those athletes who are continuing to push this narrative forward. But I would also like to see those same athletes help athletes in other arenas with their sport, because we still see they're relaxing it in a lot of sports, but it's not completely accepted. Remember the Dice Mixer in Atlanta? I won't name her, but there was a female there who was an athlete, who was a professional basketball player. And she was there because she supports cannabis. She thinks it's a healthier alternative. She plays in Africa. She plays in Europe. And she said the reason that she plays in other countries is because she is vocal about it. She is a proponent for it. But she didn't feel that in America she had a platform to be an advocate for it and still play. Because we see what happened with Brittany Griner earlier this year. There can still be serious ramifications for cannabis possession. But what are your thoughts on your favorite NBA players being able to consume or potentially even start their own company? Because we know just because a celebrity name on it don't mean it's good weed, doesn't mean it's going to sell.
First things first, all my favorite players been smoking. I already know. I already know. And from cooking for some players as well. Like I already know that players get it in. Let's face it. Like, I mean, think about back in the day, people hitting the court, you know what I'm saying? First thing that they doing, they might smoke before they go and play basketball. And they playing rounds and rounds of ball, you know what I'm saying? And they are getting it in. They're not winded. They're not like, oh, tired of it. Actually, I've actually seen where people have talked about how smoking before playing a big game or any type of big match actually helps them not only to relax, it helps them to be less anxious, it helps them to get out of their head and more focused into like what they're doing. So I'm over here, like you said, balling. Like the fact that they're actually being able to like do this in a way where it's not on this list that's gonna, potentially fuck up their livelihoods because they hit a J. I think that's the bigger thing. Making sure that people can actually still live and just have life, and that this plant, shouldn't prohibit, your ability to play basketball. It's one thing. I mean, and if anything, like, I mean, let's be realistic. If they get injured 9 times out of 10, like that's the one you say, oh, well, you were under the influence or you were actually known to partake. So then that's on you, right? Kind of a deal. But again, between violence and fucking up something, how often do you hear, oh, well, they were high on weed when they went running down the hall with a knife, you no, we somewhere trying to relax or be creative or actually use the energies to kind of just decompress and actually be present in mind. So shout out to the NBA for that. It's not being talked about enough. I personally feel like that is one that just completely slid under the radar, but I'm sure it did that under the guise of, if it's out there and it's, the information's available, but we're not gonna make this big boasty thing about it. I feel like I heard more about Sierra getting pregnant by Russell than I've heard about this. And I feel like this is actually new. See? Look. See? Lord. Well, that brings us to the end of our high topics for the evening. So I get a chance to actually roll into one of my favorite parts, is where my host gets to talk about what love, the NBA need to sponsor me too. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I can get out there and, I used to, toss it up, like, so let me hit the floor with the girls. Like but I get to go into my favorite segment where I get to talk to my host about what's been going on in their world, what they're doing, how you came to cannabis. You touched on it earlier, from being a former vet and then also running our wonderful program. So, like, tell us what's been going on with Stanley. We have missed your face. Happy to see you back. Like, what's good?
Yeah, I've missed everybody. I've had some serious professional changes happen. So everything's lining up for a reason. There's anybody that's in this industry that says, "Oh, it's fun. I love it every single day. We get to." Nah, I don't think there's any industry that is more difficult to keep your cool, stay level-headed, and even sometimes stay focused, stay motivated. It's an industry that changes daily, weekly, monthly, and the entire programs change yearly. So really, just for me, being able to stay current with what's going on, keep my eyes on the politics, but also keeping my ear to the street, because that's important. You need to know what's going on at the Capitol, but you got to have people in the streets that's going to listen to you to tell them. So we're pushing forward. We got a great episode of Sow the Land coming up next week with my good friend CJ Carter. In industrial hemp, I want everyone to know that, yes, I know you see all the Delta 8 and the CBD, you see all the pre-rolls, but please, please, please understand that the future of hemp is not CBD. It is not the CBD flower. Yes, you do have opportunities to make money in that industry. So that's what you're doing. Please don't think that I'm negating anything that you're doing. But as the industry grows and the consumer demand grows, they're looking for alternative uses for hemp fiber. We've got some great opportunities right now. If you're in a state that has a pilot program, there's a project that they're working on right now with a large-scale automotive manufacturer who produces several different lines of cars, that they want to start incorporating industrial hemp parts on the car. So hemp is the future. It is not just CBD anymore, everyone. Clothes, food, fiber. I was actually talking to
we were talking about hempcrete a couple of years ago, which is wow. You know what I'm saying? Like, and now that's becoming more mainstream as far as like building habitats and things like that for, different families, companies, industries. It's crazy how it's growing.
And I think right now with energy costs, especially in the South, it's hot down here, y'all. It's humid and it's muggy. And if you could lower your energy bills, that'll put more money in your pocket. If you could lower your waste, put more money in your pocket. And other things, if anyone's interested in hemp, think about problems in the environment. Come up with a way that hemp may potentially be able to help that problem, whether it's soiled water that needs to be remediated, where there's contaminated soil, wind, air. Reach out to your local farm service agency, reach out to the USDA. Get involved. Also coming up here, we have a lot of festivals in Georgia. I know you guys know I'm in Atlanta. Every weekend there's a different festival. We've had some great hemp festivals. We've had some strong cannabis industry-based festivals. I am right now planning my next few events, so please stay tuned. We are rescheduling the Sow the Land Hemp Symposium. You guys are not going to want to miss this one. Make sure that you're following M4MM on your social media platforms. Don't forget to comment, subscribe. Make sure you follow She Stays Baked, the Edible Incredible. Make sure you follow the Canamedic. Make sure you follow Purple Plant Magic, because we cannot conclude this show without sending a big shout out to our national director,
Absolute shout out.
members here in Georgia and abroad, Miss Nicole Buffon, and her social media is at Purple Plant Magic on Instagram. If you are in Nevada or in the Western region, please, you want to learn how you can get involved, how you can become a part of what we're doing, reach out to Nicole. She is a wealth of knowledge, but not only knowledge, resources. She's well connected. And make sure you follow Black Buddha Cannabis. We're not going to get out of here without shouting out Roz.
Look, not at all. You know we're gonna do that. And just to kind of just touch on what you were saying before I get into these events that people definitely need to know about. First hotel built out of hemp is finishing in South Africa, which is super, super big. And then Ghana just announced that they are going to in the process of legalizing industrial hemp in the country. For one, I know for a fact, like it's been a couple of years, I was actually working with a couple of fellas and we were looking at some projects because he actually has connections in his family in Africa, and I know a lot of them, they can grow it, but they can't sell it there. They have to export it out.
Yes.
So they were looking at, all the different projects and things around even hempcrete. And because hempcrete is actually, it's solid, but it's also breathable. So it helps to prevent any type of mold, contamination. It's really good in humid climates, which is why, the first hotel being built out of it, I'm super excited to see not only what that looks like for the industry itself, but what does that look like for the future of hempcrete and just using it for building materials. Now we can actually see what its benefits are well past just our own consumption, but how we consume it within, our within our world and in our everyday place. So super, super excited, like news. I'm like, whenever the hotel's ready, I want to look. I need, somebody needs to sponsor me a tour so I can go and razzle dazzle all over it and see some stuff. So we're gonna figure that out though. But want to go ahead. Well, for one, just thank you for all your information and everything, guys. Definitely make sure that you're following Stanley. But before we even get into that and get out of here, I want to make sure that you all know about the events going on currently, and then there's one that's actually going to be coming up. So one of the this is a virtual event, guys. This is called Build Your Brand Presence and Market Share, growth opportunities and the importance of the market are going to be there. So if you go to the reservations at thecannabischamber.com/events, you can actually sign up there in order to be able to listen and participate and listen to the guest speakers as they talk about what's going on. And just to give you guys some information, explore meaningful insights into key developing states and examine the business opportunities and challenges particular to each cannabis market from the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce's recent 2023 National White Paper. So if you guys are interested in that, you don't even have to leave your homes. Again, this is going to be tomorrow, actually, from at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, we have the Cannabis Conference, which is taking place next weekend, August 15th through the 17th at Paris Las Vegas Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. If you use our awesome organization, shout out to M for MM always, M for MM20, that's M, the number 4, MM20, to purchase your ticket, you will get an amazing, amazing discount code. Our illustrious organization leader, Roz, will be speaking and learn the essential steps of building a successful cannabis brand. And our very own Nicole Buffon will also be speaking and learn how to build a brand, staying empowered national brand manager for Black Buddha Cannabis. So guys, that's going to be going on, and that will be an amazing event. Also, the Southern Hemp Expo will also be taking place. And that is actually taking place. Let's see, they moved the dates. Apologies, guys. They moved the dates on me. If I'm not mistaken, this conference is taking place August 19th. And I will make sure that I get you guys the actual symposium. But if you check out the website for southernhempexpo.com, it will give you all of the details as far as what will be taking place and where you can actually register and get in. And they're actually still looking for speakers too, guys. So if there's something that you're interested in, definitely check out the Southern Hemp Expo. It's going to be great. And last but not least, we have the Women's Canna Awards. That's actually not going to be taking place until November 11th, so you have some time. But this is an amazing opportunity to share what's going on in supporting and uplifting women in the cannabis industry and what they have going on. Guys, make sure that you check it out. It's going to be an amazing event. You have time, get your tickets, make sure that you show up. This has been great. Thank you all for joining us again. Make sure that you all are following M4MM on all of our social media platforms at m4mmunited.org on the website. Stanley, thank you so much for joining me this week. You've been absolutely amazing. And guys, we will bring it to you again next month. Thank you for joining us. Talk to you soon.